everyone, welcome to Littler House Sewing. Today I'm going to start a new project and fair warning, it's a little bit of an experiment. I've not done this before, but I think it will work and I thought we might try it together and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this Castillo cardigan by Itch to Stitch. I've made this cardigan a couple of times. One out of just a gray sweatshirt fabric and another out of a boucle. I love these. I wear them all winter long in the house around so that I stay warm and cozy. But I need a couple more, I think. So I thought I would try something a little bit different with it and have some fun. So what I have is I have this quilt. Now, this is not a fancy quilt. It is not an heirloom quilt. It's nothing special. Sort of thing you could pick up in a thrift store, charity shop. This one did not come from a charity shop. I bought this at a department store when I lived in the United States. It used to be the covering of my bed there. So this is a king size quilt. But I probably paid less than $100 for this way back. It's old. It hasn't been used in absolutely years. So I thought, why not cut it up and make something else out of it? So I'm going to see if I can make this cardigan out of it. The good news is because it's a king size, it's huge. If I mess up, we can cut it again. It's no big deal. But what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to walk you through my thought process and how I'm thinking we're going to lay this out. Now, again, this is an experiment. So what you're going to see is my mind sort of working in real time. I have not thought this out yet. I haven't drawn it out. I don't have my measurements. I haven't done anything with it. So sorry if that ends up being a little bit boring, but I thought it might be interesting for you to see how I would think through a project so that you can think through your own. So look around your house. Who knows what you might find? An old blanket, an old quilt. Do not cut up great grandma's quilt for this sort of thing unless it's, falling apart and you can salvage bits and pieces of it. But I wouldn't recommend turning something valuable into a cardigan. But for something like this, I think it'll work great. Here's what the quilt looks like. So it has a nice backing that's just a plain sort of mattress ticking stripe and then a plain front. This is not pieced, so I think it will work well for this because it's not too many layers. So it's only the 2 fabric layers and then a layer of the wadding in between. I think with a pieced quilt, we could get into some trouble with some seams because it will be multiple layers with the piecing and all of that. So maybe be a little cognizant of that. The other great thing about this quilt that I love is it has this irregular wavy hem. And I hope you can see this, the gray quilt on the gray cutting board, but it has this wavy hem that I really like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to incorporate this hem and leave this intact for the bottom, but also the front where normally the placket would go. Number one, that's going to save me a ton of time if I don't have to finish and hem all of those areas. But I also think it's really cute, and I think it will look really nice. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to start looking at my pieces to lay them out, and I'll sort of talk you through how I'm doing that. And let's see what we come up with. I will just say one more thing I have from a supply standpoint. I have this pre-made bias binding. It's just cotton bias binding. It's just white. And I'm going to use it especially on the insides. I can use it on the outside. I think that will go just fine if I need to. But really the idea here is that the inside seams that I have, I'm going to have to finish them. And I don't know if overlocking will be enough. It probably would be. But with the wadding, the batting in here, I'm a little concerned about the thickness. And, I don't want that batting to show on the inside seams. So I'm going to bind the seams on the inside. I don't know all the names for that, the correct name for it. I think a lot of people call it a Hong Kong finish. I just call it a bound seam. So that's what we're going to be doing on the inside to finish the inner seams. So that's what I'm going to use. Otherwise, I might put a closure on this at the end. One of the cardigans I've made has a button closure here, the boucle one. The other one doesn't, it didn't need it. So I think I'm just gonna wait till the end and see how this fits and how it, kind of comes together at the front to see if it needs a closure or not. But otherwise, there's no zippers, there's no elastic, there's no anything with this. The other thing I'm thinking as we work on this is this particular pattern has a hood. Um, Here you can see the line drawing. It's got a hood on it. I'm not 100% sure I want the hood on this version, so I think I'm going to try it without the hood first. I'm not going to change how I cut the front or shoulder pieces. So I think I can get away with doing this without a hood. And then if I get towards the end and it's not looking right, I think we could always just add a hood at the end. But I think with this quilt, the quilted fabric, a hood's going to be a bit heavy, and I don't really want it pulling on the cardigan all the time. I think I'm going to feel like it's pulling me backwards, or when I lean back against something, I don't want that hood, thick hood, wadded up behind me. I noticed the hood quite a bit on the boucle version of this that I made because it's quite a thick fabric, and it's got a thick ribbing sort of facing all along the edge. And so I'm thinking with this, it would do the same, and I would sort of feel that bulk back there. So I'm going to see what happens if I don't put a hood on it. And maybe I'll end up cutting, we could cut a strip of this edge even and do it as sort of a facing there, almost like a collar stand kind of thing. We'll have to think about it as we get to that part. But yeah, I don't think I want a hood. So, right. So I'm going to get a little bit organized here and we'll start laying these pieces out and let's see what we come up with. Okay. So I have my pieces here. I'll walk you through which pieces I'm going to use, how I'm going to lay them out. One thing obviously we had to decide is the direction of the print. And I think on this one, it's pretty obvious that this is up. And so we want the pattern running down the fabric this way. So the garment will be oriented so that that's the bottom. And this would be a side. The top obviously is down there. So for the pieces for this particular cardigan, what I'm not going to use is I'm not going to use the pocket interfacing because I think this will be plenty thick enough that I don't think I'm going to need any interfacing. So I'm not going to bother with that. As I mentioned, I'm going to try not to put a hood on. So this is the hood. And for now, I'm going to set this aside and not use it. This is the front band. And what this is this goes from the center of the hood all the way around down the center front on both sides. On the boucle piece, I did this out of ribbing. On the sweatshirt piece, I did it out of a slightly contrasting darker gray sweatshirt fabric. That's what that's used for. I'm not actually going to do that on this piece because I want to try to keep the integrity of this wavy hem down the front as well. So it'll be sort of wavy down the front and then all the way around the hem as well. So what I'm going to need to do is account for half the width of this because it would normally be folded when it's applied. So we need half the width of this added to the front, center front of our pattern piece. It doesn't need to be exact. I'm just going to leave this to the side a little bit so that I remember to add it. But since this is not really a fitted garment, it's just a cardigan, we have some wiggle room here we can play with. A couple of other thoughts I had. The first two cardigans that I made out of this, I made out of stretch fabric for one. So, it's stretchier, has a lot more ease. Also, I have lost a lot of weight since I made those two cardigans, so they are too big for me. which is fine because they're just house cardigans. It doesn't really matter. But in thinking about the sizing, normally, as you would lose weight, of course, you would go down in sizing. Or as you move from a stretch fabric to a woven like this, we would maybe want to go up a size to account for that loss of stretch ease. So since I would go down a size for weight loss and up a size for woven fabric, I'm actually going to do the same size. We'll see how that works. It is a little bit of a guess, but again, this is a house cardigan, so it just doesn't really matter all that much. Okay, the only other piece that we need to be conscious of is this one. This is the cuff. So again, the same as with the front wavy bit, I want to keep the integrity of this hem around the bottom of the sleeve. So I'm going to cut the sleeve out such that we take advantage of this pre-done hem. So again, I have to consider the additional length of this cuff that would normally be added here when we cut out the pattern. So same as the front band, I'm going to leave this to the side, not cutting this piece out, but I need to consider it added to the length here. So I hope that makes sense. As we get to it, I think you'll see that a bit plainer. There is a pocket. We will be doing a pocket. Again, I know it's repetitive, but we're going to try and keep the integrity of the hem, but this time across the top of the pockets. So as we cut these out, I'm going to try and keep a wavy hem already done here on the top that we will be able to have as an interesting detail. The final thing to consider, these are the front and back pieces. Now, normally what would happen is we would sew this side seam together all the way to here. This particular pattern has a side slit at the bottom. I don't think I want to do that. I'm going to change this yet again. The reason I'm doing that is because, again, we're trying to keep this hem, this interesting bit. And so what I think I'm going to do is let that hem wrap around the side. We'll join these pieces together and cut them out as one. But instead, I'm going to have a seam already at the front, center front, right? There's already an opening there. But then I'm going to add a seam at the center back. Normally, this would be cut on a fold and would be a single piece across the back. But what I'm going to do is put a seam down the back, and I'm going to put a slit in the back rather than the sides. And that way I get my nice wavy hem that you see go all the way around the sides rather than breaking it up here at the sides. And the seam or the slit will be at the back. And then also, because I'm having to finish these seams on the inside with that bias binding that we talked about, it's going to be quite visible, the seam on the inside. And as I am moving about, if you happen to be able to see in, you'll see that side seam here. I'm thinking if we didn't have that, it might just look a little better. I don't know. That could be negligible, but that's sort of what I'm thinking. So I'm going to fuse these pieces together when I cut them out. And rather than cutting on a center back fold here, I'll add a seam and a slit at the bottom. So I hope that makes sense. That's what we're going to do. Now, if I were to do that, what that means is I'd be overlapping these pieces here. So where my stitch line is, I want them to meet here at the top. And where that slit would be also needs to be accounted for. So I'd be getting rid of that slit. So it would look something like this. So what you'll notice is I have the addition of this here. That's right here. So what that'll do is it'll add some bulk here. For now, I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to see what happens with the fit at the end. But I can just bear in mind, if I need to, I'll add a double-ended dart here, and I'll just stitch a dart, sort of one of those diamond-shaped darts, right here at the side if I need some shape. I don't think that's going to be necessary. Again, this is a cardigan to wear around the house for warmth in the winter. So it doesn't need to be the most flattering look. But if I decide I want to nip it in a little bit at the waist, I can do that with a dart right here. Right, so the considerations we need to make now is this edge needs to be along a finished edge here. This edge does not. This will be a cut edge that we will then bind. And by the way, I'm going to do that as I go along. So rather than sewing this seam together and then trying to apply binding to it, I will be applying my binding to my cut pieces and then sewing them together. So I'll show you when we get to the making part how to do that, but I think that's easier than trying to bind after you've already sewn the pieces together. Okay, so if you're new to sewing, you might think these pieces look a little bit funny. It's a little hard to visualize how these are going to go together. And that's probably because this is a raglan sleeve. So when you're looking at a raglan sleeve, what we have is these seams will be sewn together to here, like that. There's a dart here, and then these seams here, these edges will be sewn together into a seam on this side, okay? And then this is your sleeve, so this will become a tube, and these edges, as you remember, are going to be already sewn together because we're cutting them out. So we'll actually be placing this in the round. But regardless, the top of the sleeve on a raglan pattern forms part of the neckline. So this is the back neck. This is the raglan sleeve neck. It'll be right here. I think actually this is a raglan sleeve. So on this sweatshirt, you can see the top of my sleeve comes all the way up and forms part of the neckline here. It'll be the same on this. And then this is our front neckline. So just to orient you a little bit on these pattern pieces, because this looks a bit funny. So I'm going to get some tape. Actually, I'm not going to bother taping these. I don't need to. They'll be fine. My cutting table is magnetic. Well, it's metal underneath this cutting mat. And I have magnets, so I will be able to magnetize these down well enough that they'll stay put. I think that's all we need to think about, and we can get to cutting next. So stay with me, and we'll get to the cutting next, and then we'll start putting this together.